Now a thought for my little partners. Be happy and proud that you're an American. Remember, there are millions of little boys and girls all over the world that would give anything for that privilege.
For several generations of Western fans, William Boyd will always be known as Hopalong Cassidy, the character he portrayed on film, radio, comics, and television. William Boyd has always been one of my favorites. Hopalong Cassidy, a great series of B-westerns, just a cut above most of the others. Born in Ohio, June 5, 1895, Boyd was 8 when his family moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Both parents died while Bill was in his early teens, so he quit school and took to the road and a variety of menial jobs while working his way west. By 1919, he had arrived in Hollywood, his hair prematurely white. His first movie job was that of an extra in the Cecil B. DeMille production, Why Change Your Wife? Boyd's striking good looks, 6-foot frame and white hair that photographed as blonde, caught the eye of DeMille, who cast him as the romantic lead in The Volga Boatman, 1926. It was a major success. Audiences wanted to see more of this dashing actor, and DeMille used Boyd in a string of successful silent films including King of Kings, The Last Frontier, and The Yankee Clipper. Boyd's wonderfully sonorous voice made the transition to talking films easy for him.
Look out there across the desert. As far as you can see, way off there in the distance, you see those big lonesome pinnacles? When I was a little boy, I used to lie out there evenings watching the shadows cross over them. I used to imagine there were all sorts of things. Dragons fighting, giants lying there sleeping, and great big monsters that might come down after it got dark and get me.
I know. I used to think that way, too.
Now in sound films, Boyd signed with RKO, starring in a series of films with up-and-coming leading ladies like Carole Lombard and 2 with Ginger Rogers. But the films were minor, and in one of them, the actor playing the bad guy got all the good notices. It was a young Clark Gable.
If you lie to me, I'll know it. And Brett, I'll kill you.
All right, Holbrook. Here it is. I did everything. Wagons, mine and all. And I'd do it again if you or any other man come between me and what I want.
That film was The Painted Desert and was made in 1931, a year that almost ended the career of William Boyd. Something happened that derailed his career almost permanently. Another actor named William Boyd was caught in a police raid at his home in connection with the seizure of gambling equipment, bootleg booze, and porno movies. The Hearst newspaper syndicate printed the story, incorrectly using the photo of the other William Boyd, our William Boyd, then under contract to RKO, a contract that carried a morals clause. That's all it took, simply running the wrong photo. Before he was branded William Stage Boyd by the courts, the other William Boyd had appeared in some major features. He had been a leading man with Barbara Stanwyck and Claudette Colbert. Plus, he co-starred with Gary Cooper in the early talkie version of The Spoilers. Despite being innocent, our William Boyd was out at RKO, and the only studios that would thereafter hire him were the bottom rung of Poverty Row independents. In 1935, when producer Harry Sherman approached Boyd to take a lesser role in the planned Hopalong Cassidy series, he was sleeping off a bad drunk at his beach house, which actually belonged to his then-current wife, Dorothy Sebastian. He was not the original choice. The producer, Pop Sherman, originally offered the role to James Gleason, that crusty old character actor. Luckily for all of us, he said no. In a very strange coincidence, that same year, the first Hopalong Cassidy movie went into production, 1935. The other, William Stage Boyd, died. The character of Hopalong came from a series of books and pulp stories written by Clarence E. Mulford about a crude and crusty old cowpoke. Definitely not how the character evolved on film.
Bill Cassidy!
Hiya, boys.
Why, you old horned toad, I thought you never was going to get here.
Well, Red Connors, you old horse thief.
You mangy old coyote, you. It's good to see you.
Now I know I'm home.
The stories of Hoppy and the Bar 20 Ranch eventually stretched to 18 books. Boyd was an accomplished actor, and he brought an adult vibe to the character. He broke the cowboy hero mold and dressed all in black, typically the bad guy's color. His infectious laugh also became a signature element to the character.
The next time Clay Morgan goes poker playing, he'll leave his checkbook home with me.
You're in for trouble, son.
The Hoppy movies were a successful long-running series of B-movie features and were the first of the so-called trio westerns. That is, a hero with two sidekicks. Because Boyd was 40 years old when he took the role of Hopalong, he got a young sidekick to handle the romance. James Ellison was the first in the series.
Hey, Bill, how did you happen to meet up with the kids?
Oh, he was the kind of a ruckus, and I happened to be riding by.
I reckon it was a good thing for him you weren't riding by.
Say, there ain't no call for you spouting off about what you done for me. I thanked you, didn't I?
Young feller, somebody needs to teach you some manners.
Well, whenever you feel lucky, you can try.
Oh, he's a good kid, Bill. Little mite hasty. Same as you when you was his age.
I reckon me and the young hothead will get along.
Sure.
After Ellison left the series, he was replaced by Russell Hayden, then Brad King, Jimmy Rogers, and even George Reeves before he became forever known as Superman. Rand Brooks took over the part of Lucky in the later features. The third member of the trio was a grizzled old saddle pal for comic relief. A pre-Gabby George Hayes was the first as Wendy. When Hayes left for more money at Republic Pictures, he was replaced by Andy Clyde as California.
What on earth?
We were only trying to help.
You didn't have to drown me.
The trio formula worked with other B-Western series like The Three Musketeers, The Rough Riders, The Rangebusters, and The Texas Rangers. With Pop Sherman producing the Hopalong Cassidy features, they always had superior B-Western budgets, solid acting and scripts, top talent in front of the camera and behind. Actors who made regular appearances in the series include Victor Jory, Lee J. Cobb, and Robert Mitchum, who made a total of 7 Hopalong Cassidy westerns. Mitchum's parts got bigger and bigger with each movie until he finally left to star in A movies.
Did you go on location of any westerns that he was doing?
I guess I must have, because I remember meeting William Boyd.
Mm-hmm.
And my father, he has 13 uncredited films with William Boyd.
Yes, tell us about Hoppy.
An agent came down, they heard about this actor who was hot. He came down and said, you ever want to work in movies, give me a call. So he went up there and they sent him out on a Hoppy set. Wrangler said, you ever ride a horse? He said, oh yeah, I've never been on a horse in his life. So they suit him up and he goes to get on the horse and the horse kind of skitters away from him. So he takes it around to the building and puts it up against the building, hits it as hard as he can behind the ear. He says, I need this job. Gets on the horse, stays on it all day long. At the end of the day, he's getting off the horse. The wrangler says, wow. He said, I didn't think you're going to be able to ride him. He said, why not? He said, you know that hat you're wearing? The guy who was wearing that yesterday is dead. The horse killed him. That's why you got the job. So that was his first day at work on a Western. Yeah.
42-year-old William Boyd married 23-year-old actress Grace Bradley a mere 3 weeks after meeting her. To say that it was love at first sight would be an understatement. It was Boyd's 5th marriage.
They were 2 years into the series in 1937, and he met Grace Bradley, and he was in the middle of making this picture, and they got married in Los Angeles and had to drive back to Lone Pine, and they stayed in a cabin that Harry Sherman, the producer of the Hopalong Cassidy pictures, bought and owned for a time, so that when William Boyd would come to Lone Pine, they could stay in what's called the Hoppy cabin.
That location was several hours north of L.A. in an area known for a spectacular mountain range and its clusters of unique boulders and rocks known as the Alabama Hills.
I was 12 years old in 1937, and we made 4 movies, 2 of them in 1937 and 2 of them in 1938. And of the 4 movies, there was a character, if you want to call it that, for a child who was a horseman that Mulford made a hero 4 times, and that kid rescued Hopalong Cassidy's Bar 20 ranch 4 times. And I was that kid, and it was a pleasure. I wasn't acting, I was me.
Hi, riding my way?
Mind if I do?
It's a free range, you can ride any place you want.
I really did think Boyd was my hero. Oh, my goodness. I saw every Hopalong Cassidy movie that came to Delano, and I was one of many kids that sat in the front row with a cap pistol on my side, shooting everybody that there was. And we thought Bill Boyd was the greatest thing that ever happened.
In the mid-1940s, Pop Sherman was moving on to bigger films, and Bill and his wife decided to buy the film rights and continue producing Hoppy movies on their own. They mortgaged their home and ranch, paying $350,000 to secure the rights and keep making Hopalong Cassidy movies, 12 more, even as the quality noticeably declined and demand for more features decreased. However, there was a little clause in the buyout contract for the character that may not have seemed important at the time. Boyd had also acquired the rights to make films for a little thing called television.
Here he comes, here he comes. There's the trumpets, there's the drums, here he comes. Hopalong Cassidy, here he comes.
In the late 1940s, when Boyd licensed the Hoppy features to television, the reruns of the old films took the nation by storm, so much so that NBC contracted Boyd to produce new Hoppy films for primetime to satisfy the demand, half-hour TV episodes. When the new Hopalong Cassidy TV series went into production, Boyd was back to his famous all-black outfit and riding his white horse, Topper. He even got a new sidekick, Edgar Buchanan as Red Connors, a character from the original Clarence Mulford novels. Buchanan was perfect for the part.
Howdy, man. Jenny finds you, Clay.
Jenny?
Yeah, she was in here about an hour ago. She's mighty anxious to see you.
What a love. What a wonderful man. You know, I just feel so blessed to have been able to work with their icons. And they're just the most wonderful, down-to-earth, sweet people. I kid you not. It's the truth. And I was just a kid. And they just took care of me. Put me under their wing as if they were my father. I mean, they were so wonderful to me. I'll never, ever forget William Boyd, so many of them.
And Edgar Buchanan, I think, played his sidekick in the TV shows.
Yes, he did.
What was he like?
A kick in the pants. I think, what was that called? Blind Encounter. Wasn't that the name of the show?
I believe it was,
Blind
yes.
Encounter, yeah.
It seemed like in all of these shows you were some saucy senorita.
I played a lot of senoritas.
To save money on the TV episodes, Boyd reused footage from the features in various episodes and resorted to using voice-over narration rather than filming time-consuming dialogue scenes or expensive action. Kinda like I'm doing right now.
Jim admitted hating Ben ever since he'd shot his pet dog, claiming it had gone mad. When the boy insisted the man was no good, he was ridiculed. Everyone knew of Jim's feelings. That's why they'd been so ready to accept his guilt. The $500 note had been a forgery. He never knew how they got his shotgun, and Clark had deliberately lied about seeing him shoot Ben. They wouldn't listen to Jim's alibi that he'd been on the trail of one of the Wells Fargo holdup men. Wells Fargo robbery. That was just a day or so before Ben's murder.
When the Hopalong Cassidy craze exploded on television in the early 1950s, not only was Boyd on dozens of magazine covers, but he also successfully marketed his image and the character of Hoppy to hundreds of products, including the very first school lunchbox to bear a licensed image. Boyd the man and Hoppy the character became interchangeable and made Boyd and his fifth wife, Grace Bradley, multi-millionaires. Even years after his passing, Grace still referred to her husband as Hoppy. Boyd retired from the screen in the 1960s, not wanting to disappoint his fans who were used to seeing the aging Boyd in his prime as Hoppy. Boyd refused to do interviews or be photographed in public. He contracted Parkinson's disease and died of heart failure at the age of 77, September 12, 1972. For several generations of Western fans, William Boyd will always be the most famous hero of all, Hopalong Cassidy.
Hi there, little partners. I understand there's been quite a little talk around your house lately about going to bed. Now, I know that we all hate to go to bed. We're always so afraid we're going to miss something. But you must get a lot of sleep. And the time to go to bed is when your mommy or your daddy tell you to. Not 15 minutes later or 20 minutes later, or not 1 or 2 television shows later, but right now. I'll see you next week. Until then, get lots of good sleep, will you? Good night.